Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank Benjamin. Thanks for having me, man. Honored to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah, yeah. It's nice to meet you. This is our first time meeting one another, so it's great to have you on the podcast, and I appreciate your time. And want to talk a little bit about this idea that you obviously believe in quite a bit. This idea of grit. Tell the audience. I've heard this word. I think there's some books out there, obviously, too, with grit.
hmm
What is this idea about grit, and why is this so important?
Yeah, so and you're right. I didn't coin the word grit. There are books written on it. In fact, a lady by the name of Angela Duckworth she probably gets a lot of um the renowned fan base for putting grit like on the map. And yeah, she's the one that really got me thinking about it. I came across her TED Talk about 7 years ago. It was an awesome TED Talk. It's only about 6 minutes, but she was basically talking about how in her research grit is a likely predictor of success in life. Not talent, but grit, hard work, that type stuff. And she had this grit scale that you can take, and she still has it on her website. I just looked at it the other day. In fact, it's 10 questions.
Mm,
It takes like 3 minutes. And you answer these questions, and then you'll learn basically how gritty you are compared to all the other people that took the test. And
nice.
when I took it's based on a score 1 through 5. So 5 being like a paragon of grit, one having like nothing. I scored like a 2.2, man. And
Oh
that was,
no.
dude, it was a gut check. I mean, talk about the ego just going from like here, like
Yeah.
all the way down. And at first I didn't want to believe it, but as I started thinking about it and self-diagnosing the way the questions were worded, I was like, yeah, that is me. Like I tend to give up on things and move on to the next shiny project. And I had lots of projects that I just never saw through to the finish line. And that got me rocking, man, because I'm very competitive by nature. I know you have a sales background, as do I. I used
Hmm.
to be in medical sales. I know you were in
Hmm.
pharma,
Yeah.
and that's competitive. Sales is just competitive.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, how do I get grittier? And
Yeah.
I read her book front to back, and basically you can grow grit from the inside out. You can grow it from the outside in. And I wanted like instant gratification, so I wanted something from the outside that was going to shape me and form me. And
Yeah.
that's when I chose to go to this camp put on by Navy SEALs, and it's a watered down version of Hell Week, man,
Wow.
and sort of the rest is history. But that's really how it started, is with that book, with that word grit.
Yeah.
And you had asked earlier, or I think you had mentioned earlier, there are lots of definitions of it. It's kind of one of those things that people struggle to really say what it is, and there are different meanings, which is totally cool. I like that because it's open for interpretation. And
Yeah.
it's not one of those things that you can immediately look at someone and say, oh yeah, they got it, they got grit, I can tell just by the way they look.
Yeah.
No, that's not it.
Yeah.
So Angela says it's the power of passion and perseverance over the long haul. And I've kind of come up with my own definition,
Okay.
and this has evolved over time. But I like to say that grit is it's uncommon perseverance
Mm.
in the face of adversity, backed by a strong why to achieve a worthy goal.
Mm. Say that
And
one
there's
more time. That's
yeah,
good. Say that
I'd
one
love
more
to
time.
repeat it, man, because there's really 4 parts to that. So it's
Yeah.
uncommon perseverance,
Okay.
and to me, that's the effort, right? That's the hard work. That's not giving up on yourself in the face of adversity. I got to put adversity in there, man, because
Yep.
when it's sunny and the weather's nice, everybody wants to put on their shoes and go for a run. But man, I don't know where you live, but I live in Indiana. It's supposed to snow
Yeah.
tomorrow morning. It was just 75 the day before. It's like I see a lot of people running.
Yeah. That's
So
right.
you got to face that adversity,
Yeah.
and it's got to be backed by a strong why. I mean, time and time again, no matter what it is you're doing, whether you're trying to wake up early, you're working on something at your job, or you got a passion you're working on, got to know why you're doing it. Because at some point you're probably going to get bored. You're going to want to go to that next project or whatever.
Hmm.
And the last part's to achieve a worthy goal. So, make sure that goal aligns with your passions, your principles, your purpose. So
Yeah.
again, it's uncommon perseverance in the face of adversity, backed by a strong why to achieve a worthy goal.
Yeah. I love that. No, that's fantastic. Tell the audience, in case some are not aware of, you mentioned the Navy SEALs and this watered down version of Hell Week.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with Hell Week, but tell the audience, like, what did this look like for you? Because obviously it had this huge impact where,
Mhm.
and I'm curious, is that where the School of Grit, your coaching program, did all of this emerge after that? Tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, it all was forged in that fire, so to speak. That's where the book and the coaching program and all that really evolved from. But up until that point, so I'm 43 now, and I was about 34 at the time. And
Mhm.
life was good, man. It was cush, but you know what the problem was? It was too comfortable.
Yeah.
It really was. And not that I didn't go through typical everyday stuff, but like when I compared, or if you listen to like motivational speakers and podcasts, a lot of these guests, at least that I would listen to, had these just incredible life experiences, right? Brushes with death, fought diseases, deployed multiple times, raised in a broken home. Man, I didn't have any of that. Like
Mhm.
I came from a loving family.
Mhm.
Thank God, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I'm the oldest of four. We all are super close. My parents are still married. Never had to worry about having a roof over my head or having enough to eat. We were middle class, man,
Mhm.
and yeah, we weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I knew we weren't poor because
Yep.
I knew what those two different groups look like, and I knew I didn't quote unquote belong in
Mhm.
either one. So I was just kind of in the middle, going along, and I had to study, but grades came. I made decent enough grades, right? I worked just hard enough to
Mhm.
get decent grades. I could make friends, and I just had this epiphany that, um, like in my mid 30s, that life's good, but man, it's too comfortable, and I've never really put myself in that position. Purpose. What I say is, um, my book is all about unlocking your potential through what I call purposeful adversity. I've never on purpose put myself into adversity to really figure out who I am, what my character is, what I'm made of,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times that's what it takes, especially in today's society with technology and social media and TV and just all this 24/7 stuff, man.
Mhm.
We need something just to like shock our system and
Yeah.
get rid of that, and let's get a little primal.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of epiphany I had in my mid 30s, and it was kind of sheer luck. I went on to YouTube, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, as are most of the listeners. I consume a lot of media that way, and I literally typed in "world's toughest civilian training," and this camp popped up called
Wow.
Kokoro Camp.
Yeah.
Kokoro is a Japanese term that means the blending of heart and mind into action, and
Mm.
it's put on by a company called SEAL Fit out in California. And the guy that runs that is one of my mentors. His name's Mark Devine. He's a
Yeah.
former Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with
Are
Mark.
you
Yeah.
familiar with Mark? Yeah, he runs
Yeah.
Unbeatable Mind as well.
Yep.
Yep. So I saw a video, and I still remember it. Like
Yeah.
just like I remember Angela Duckworth talking about grit in her TED Talk. I remember Mark, and he was addressing this class at Kokoro Camp, and he big guy, muscular dude. He's wearing glasses, chiseled chin, and he's just
Yep.
arms crossed, looking out at this class of people that signed up. And he looks out and he says, "Rejoice in adversity.
Mm.
Rejoice in adversity. How do we grow as human beings? It's through adversity.
Mm.
Warriors seek out the severest of schools in order to forge their character.
Yeah.
Welcome to the severest of schools." And I was like, holy, the hair on the back of my neck rose. I got goosebumps, and I still get goosebumps when I say that. And I just said, man, I just knew, when you just know, like you can't really explain it. I was like, I gotta go there. Like I'm gonna find something. I don't know what. I
Yeah.
can't even hardly explain it to anyone if they want to ask me why. But like, I gotta go do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it, man, and then I
Very
took
cool.
action on it, right? I
Yeah.
signed up and went.
Nice. Well, yeah, you're making me think about a lot of things. One, I'm 44, so it's interesting some of the similarities. You were in medical sales, I was in pharmaceutical sales, and I made a career change at the age of 30, where I got into preaching full time, preaching the Bible. So I still do
Mhm,
that full time, as we were talking about before we hit the record button. But I kind of felt the same way too, right? Where I had this great job with Pfizer. It really opened my eyes like to how the world works, and it gave me a lot of confidence. If you can talk to doctors, you can pretty much talk to anybody.
Yep.
But there were some things, I don't know, it's kind of like a feeling of, okay, like what's next? Is there something bigger out there? And so for us, I was married at the time. It was a big move, and I referred to it like as our Abraham moment, Abraham in the Old Testament, where he was called to move, and there's just a lot of unknown. But there's something about adversity, and even just listening to you talk. We're studying the book of Philippians, and the Apostle Paul talks about rejoicing, and he says all of this while he's in prison. So there's something about this idea, of how we can still rejoice even in adversity, for sure. So yeah, I appreciate that, and this idea of grit, I think everybody has it. It's
Hmm.
trying to, how can you pull it out?
Right.
And let's talk a little bit about that. You obviously have grown in your mental toughness, and
Hmm.
so give us some details. What might be some pillars when it comes to increasing or building mental toughness?
Yeah, it's for one, it's having that mindset that it can be something you can grow
Yeah.
every day, week on week, and you kind of habit stack those.
Hmm.
But it's nothing. It's not really rocket science, man. I
Yeah.
like to say just do something that sucks every day, even if it's just one thing.
Hmm.
And that one thing, literally, it's still hard for me to do to this day, but I do it every
Hmm.
morning, and that is wake up early. I
Tell
love
us,
to
tell us what
sleep.
early looks like. What does early look like?
So early is like
Okay.
5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Um, I love sleeping. I just do. So, uh, yeah. So I wake up early, and I've got this morning routine that
Yeah.
I just got dialed in, man,
Yeah.
over several years,
So I
and
got I
that's
got I got to
yeah,
stop you there because I'm
yeah,
really curious,
absolutely.
and we can kind of go back and forth a little bit. Tell me a little bit about the morning routine, because um, sometimes people may hear this idea of a morning routine. And back in 2016, I started going to the gym at 5 o'clock because a buddy of mine wanted to work out, and I said, "Man, if you got to work out at 5, that means I got to get up at 4. That's
Hmm.
crazy." But I did it, and it really did have a lot of benefits. And there's some books out there like Miracle Morning, and
Yep.
other people talk about waking up early. Jocko Willink wakes up early. A lot of people do, but what does your routine look like? Because I've noticed throughout the years, mine has changed, and it's kind of it will evolve based upon maybe what I need to improve with respect to grit or grow in. But I'm curious about yours.
Yeah, and mine has evolved too. It's funny you mentioned that because it does have seasons, but at its core is whatever time you choose to wake up is waking up. Do not hit snooze because
Okay,
you're literally losing the first battle of the day. So get up.
get up.
I make my bed
Hmm.
because of have you seen Admiral
Yes,
McCraven's? Yeah, love
yeah. I
it.
had my
His
son
his
read
book
that.
Make Your Bed. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had my
loved it.
son read his book, "Make Your Bed."
Okay, that fantastic.
Yeah,
So I make my bed, right? Got one thing done that's going to lead to something else.
yeah.
Because I mean, up to that point, I never made my bed. I figured why I got to do this every day, like and then he changed me, as
Yep.
he's changed a lot of people.
Hmm.
So yeah, make the bed and then water,
Hmm.
chugging water,
Yeah.
chug a lug, man. Um, Down the hatch. So every because when you wake up, you're dehydrated.
Hmm.
And I love coffee. I'm a big coffee guy, but if coffee dehydrates you even further, right? So first
Hmm.
thing I do, boom, drink water. Then I press the button to make the coffee because the night before. So that's the other thing too. Your morning routine really starts the night before as
Yep.
well, at
Hmm.
least with some of this stuff. So the coffee maker's good to go. All I gotta do is press the button. My workout stuff is set to the side, so I don't have to do that in the morning. And then I've got some sort of a plan. It's nothing crazy, but it's like, hey, what's the one thing I got to get done tomorrow? It's that simple. I think of it the night before. I try to
Hmm.
make it as simple as possible. So after I've got that water, got the coffee going, um, what I did for years, because this is how I wrote my book, was and I would wake up, do all that stuff, and then I'm big on breath exercises, whether you want to call it meditation, breath work, whatever. Dude, it works. I was not a believer for a long time until I just made it a habit. So I spent about 10 minutes doing my own breath work, and then I've got 10 minutes that I do somatic movement. So basically a combination of yoga and stretching, just something I've designed over the years. So that's about 20 minutes, and man, I'm ready to go. So typically, then what I do, because I still got about 30 minutes to maybe an hour before the kids wake up and stuff,
Mhm.
is I'll work on a passion project. Yeah,
Mm.
it's work, but it's not my W-2 work. It's
Mhm.
what drives me, which was all School of Grit related. So at the time, it was writing. That's how I wrote the book. Was I just woke up early, and after I did my little bit of morning routine, I'd literally sit down at the kitchen table, man, and write. And my goal was to write at least 500 words
Mhm.
every day. That has changed, and now that the book's out, I've got that time. So it's like, cool. What am I gonna fill that time slot with? And
Mhm.
what it has become, just over the last few months, is actually walking with my wife,
Okay.
which I love.
Yeah.
So she's my accountability partner too. There's
Okay.
lots of mornings we don't want to wake up, but it's like we'll
Yeah.
wake up together now, do our little morning thing, and then we'll either work out, do a and nothing crazy, about 30 minutes. We'll either work out in the garage, go for a walk, or we like rucking, which is just, weighted backpack, go walk around the neighborhood, that type thing. So much fun though. Like
Yeah.
really good conversations with the spouse, and just when I get back, I'm just every time I get back, I'm like, I'm so glad I made myself do that.
Mhm.
Yep.
I
So that's
love
what mine looks like, man. How about you? How's
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm doing the make your bed in the morning. So, back in 2016, and my mindset was, or how I would describe it would be basically living 2 days in one.
mm,
So, like by 8 a.m., it's like, man, I can't believe how much I've gotten done. So I still like to get my workout in first thing in the morning. I typically do high intensity interval training, so I have some weights in the garage. I have a Peloton bike, so I can hop on that, fairly quickly. Um, I'm trying to drink at least 34 ounces of water when I wake up, and
hmm
I'll do the caffeine as well. There's a podcast, Huberman Lab, um, and I got back on Twitter here recently, and I saw a post where I guess there's some data out there saying delay your caffeine when you wake up for about 60 to 90 minutes to allow your natural hormones to regulate and all of that. So I'm starting to experiment with that, to just kind of delay it a little bit. But I write out my prayers, so that's part of my morning routine as
that's
well.
cool.
And then I like to read a book. So I've been focusing on the last few months, overcoming worry. And so I'm reading a book right now. It came out, I think, in the 1930s. It's called "How to Worry Successful," or
Hmm.
how to worry successfully, by a psychologist by the name of David Seabury. So it's a really fascinating book. But that's typically my morning routine as well. I love it. It's quiet. You do feel like you are accomplishing a lot of things. And I think back like in 2016 and 2017, I had a lot of creativity in the morning time. So the
Yep.
different things that I was trying to create, it happened in those early morning hours. And people often ask, I'm sure they ask you this question too, like, well, how do you wake up that early? And it's what you said. You make a decision
Yep.
and you wake up. And to me, that sounds like grit, right? If you're
It's
gonna
a
follow through, it's gonna be a little bit painful, but there's always gonna be something worthwhile in it.
Yeah, you gotta know why you're waking up. That's
Exactly.
when in my coaching, that's usually because we talk about obviously morning ritual and set your day up for success, and
Mhm,
winning in the mind before setting foot on the battlefield of life. Everybody's on the same battlefield,
mhm.
and that's the first question I usually ask them. I'm like, why do you wake up in the morning? They're like, well, I gotta go to work, or I gotta get the kids up. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not, we need to find what that why is. And that really goes somewhere into like what you're passionate about, or what you like to do, or what you think your purpose is.
Yeah. Well, I wanna go back when you had this experience, right? So, this interaction that you had with Mark Levine, this challenging crucible. Um, what happened after that? You shared with me earlier you were in medical sales. Did you make a shift because you're into coaching, you're an author? How fast after that did things begin to shift in your life where you're like, this is what I want to do, or this is what I need to do?
So I would say my day-to-day activity pretty much changed overnight, because when I graduated, or actually, yeah. So let me back up a little bit. When Mark was addressing our class after we had just gone through, it's 50 hours
Mm,
of no sleep, constant movement, nonstop pressure, physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, you break down several times. That's the idea. But what's cool about this camp is the SEALs come alongside you to teach you the tools and the tactics to persevere and overcome.
yeah.
It's not just about beating you down and having you quit. Like that's real buds, right? That's a real Navy SEAL if you go. Like
Right.
they want to weed out the weak immediately. And then
Yeah.
if you pass, okay, cool, now we'll train you, right? Like that's the mentality. This is definitely tough, but they're not there just to break you. They want to see you succeed. We still ended up losing about 50% though, having said that.
How many people were in your class?
We had about 50.
Okay.
Yeah, we had one of the largest classes at the time.
Wow.
And I was so I think I told you I was 35. I was one of the oldest people there. I had a little bit of gray hair,
Yeah.
which is I got a lot of gray hair that I got a hat on, but they called me Gramps. That was my nickname out there, Gramps. Because going up against these 18, 20-year-old dudes, like
Yeah.
really, really wanting to go into the spec op community.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, fast forward into the camp. I mean, it's pure joy, right? Tears flowing. You've just accomplished probably, if it's not the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, it's certainly one of them.
Yeah.
And Mark, in his infinite wisdom, as he usually does, is very good at asking questions. And
Mhm.
he said, "What's next?
Yeah.
What's next?" I'm thinking, man, I don't know. And I think you have a lot of that anytime you do something, anytime you reach that peak. There's always a lull. There's always some sort of depression that sits in, because you might not have that next thing to jump to, or that next goal. And it's like, yeah, what am I going to do next?
Mhm.
So yeah, I actually struggled with that post the camp. I thought it was more physical events. I've done other things besides that, but nothing really measured up to that experience. But I went back to, like, what did I really learn out there? And the thing that I kept coming back to time and time again was serving others and
Mhm.
putting others first instead of myself, because that camp's designed, a Rambo or someone who wants to go through by them, they won't make it. I've seen it, and I've also been on the other end of it as an assistant cadre out there. The team makes it, and I really strive to be part of a team like that again, and have a mission. And that's what led me to Mark's sister company, which is called Unbeatable Mind, which is
Mm.
all about teaching you those tools and tactics. They refer to it as the 5 mountains. So it's physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and your warrior spirit. And I was bought in, man. So during 2020, during the lockdown, I was
Yeah.
like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
It's like I'm signing up for the certification. So I signed up to be
Very nice.
certified coach through
Yeah.
Unbeatable Mind. It was a year long, awesome, great experience. And that's really what made the big shift into coaching. And I love it. I love working with small groups and
Yeah.
just seeing them go off and attack the world.
Yeah.
It's great.
Tell us a little bit about your coaching. What does that look like? You mentioned a little bit about small groups and the certification. Give us some feedback. Sometimes people, how would you describe coaching? Is it the same as consulting? Um, I listened to a podcast by a guy named Scott Young, and he's got a book called Ultra Learning, which is a really great book too.
Mhm.
But he was talking about tutors, and I actually had my son listen to it because he's like, tutoring is very similar, if not the same, as coaching, and the
Yep.
benefit. I think sometimes people can look down. Okay, what do you mean by coach and or tutor? How do you define coaching, and what does your coaching business or practice look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think it's got different meanings. But if you think about it, likely throughout your course of life, you've had coaches in all different
Mm-hmm.
aspects, whether it's a
Yep.
sport, whether you have a financial advisor. Well, guess what? That's a coach as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So they come in many forms, whether or not they
Mhm.
actually use the C word or not. But I liken myself to performance coaching. I wouldn't say peak performance though. I like to say I'm optimal performance, kind of what I was hitting on earlier. If you go the peak route, you're gonna overdo it somewhere, and there's gonna be some burnout. I've seen that time and time again. Or you hit that peak, and then behind the peak is a valley. I mean, there always is. So I'm much more about optimal performance. How can we have you performing at a very high rate in all those five mountains that I talked about: physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, warrior spirit. But
Mm-hmm.
we do that through basically, I work with teams and individuals to help them grow grit through purposeful adversity. And we really believe in the power of community. And what we're trying to do is really develop what I call a warrior class. So that's what I'm all about. And like a warrior class is, I really liken that to two different things. One is setting goals and being able to accomplish them no matter what the odds. And then the second is just the ability to be able to fight for yourself and those around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So
nice. Were you married, I take it, when you made this shift into coaching? And if
uh,
so, how
yeah.
did your wife respond with this major life and career change?
Yeah. So we've been married 17 years, man. So she's been with me through thick and thin. She's my rock. And she was with me when I signed up for Kokoro camp. She thought I was crazy. Just like, why would you want to do, and
Yeah.
again, sometimes that stuff's hard to explain, but you know it, like when you
Yep.
feel it in your heart, and it's like, I gotta go do this. I have to. And she backed me, but I literally told her, I'll never forget it. It was the night before, and because I would have zero contact with her once that camp started. It's not like you have your cell phone on you. They confiscate all that stuff. And she was scared for it. And I said, look, you're not going to hear from me this weekend. If you hear from me, um, something bad has happened. Cause I was like, I'm not going to give up on this. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know if that put her in the right mindset going out, but
Yeah.
she doesn't know what to think sometimes, because she'll be like, "Oh, how was your day?" And I'll talk. I get to meet like really cool people. That's the other thing. I meet people all walks of life, and a
Yeah.
lot of them, or at least right now, they're all on the internet. They're like
Yep.
my video friends, like you. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she just thinks she thinks I'm like a double agent. Like I have this whole other life. Like I'm Batman, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, you got two jobs. You got the W-2, what people know
Yeah.
you for, and then at night you're doing all this like super secret stuff. It's like, that's
Yeah.
not really secret. It's just
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I mean, I have my love-hate relationship with technology, I think, as we all do. But
Yeah.
stuff like this is amazing, like getting to see you and feeling the
Yeah.
energy. And I think one thing technology does, especially with coaching, that I've seen is I think there's what I like to say, safety and distance.
Mm.
So it's different if you've ever like gone into a room with a
Mhm.
therapist or something like that. It's
Yep.
a totally different feeling than showing up on camera in
You're
front of
right.
someone. And I
Yeah.
find, at least this has been my experience, I think people are quicker to open up, man. And I,
Yeah.
and I do small groups. So all it takes is that one person to really
Yep.
get vulnerable or authentic. And man, that's just a catalyst for everybody else. Everybody starts chiming in and helping each other out, and then other people will talk about what's really ailing them, and
Mhm.
that's the magic anyway
Mhm.
that I've experienced, and I love that. Like that's what
Yeah.
gets me going.
No, I love that too, and I love your energy as well. A question I wanted to ask earlier popped up. I just thought of it again. You mentioned how the SEALs helped you guys out during those 50 hours. Can you share some of the tools and tactics that they gave you during that time, or is that private, or how does that work?
Yeah, you got to sign up for my program. No, I'm kidding. I'm happy to share. Happy to share. There's lots of things. I mean, the first one that I think of is before this even kicked off. We're in a loadout room, basically, like stowing all of our gear. We
Yeah.
got our uniforms ready to go. We've got our black cargo pants and our boots. We're making sure everybody's tucked in, got your belt on, got your name stenciled on the back, got your canteens, your ruck, and your fake weapon, which was a PVC pipe full of sand. And it's like, all right, here we go. And this guy walks in later to find out he was, I believe he was on SEAL Team 6. So one of those dev group dudes. But he walks in. It's, very, everybody's anxious. You could just tell, man. I mean, you could cut the tension with a knife. And he said, you guys will be successful if you remember these 3 words. This is all you got to remember. He's like, no matter what we throw at you out there. He's like, number 1, remember to breathe. Take time to breathe. All right. Because breathing is going to allow you to do what? Think. That's the second thing you need to do. So breathe, think about what you're doing, and then execute. Do what we tell you to do. It's like if you do that, he's like, this weekend's gonna be a breeze. I'm like, all right. I'm gonna try that with my kids, and my kids are young. That did not work. So
yeah.
they've gotten better, but I was like, yeah, you just need to breathe, think, and execute. And I was like, okay, you're breathing, you're thinking about what I'm telling you, but you're still not doing what I'm
Not
telling you to do.
executing.
So we're missing something. But anyway, that's a whole nother
I love it.
conversation. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing I can think of. There's lots of lessons. We teach something called the Big Four mental toughness. In its simplistic form, it starts with, again, surprise, surprise, breath. So being able to control your breath, especially in chaotic environments or, just high stress, high anxiety. And really, those of you listening, you could practice this right now. Think about any time you've had a presentation with a doctor, a crucial conversation with a spouse, a love, something you're just not really looking forward to. Take note of where your breath is. Most often you're holding it. You're holding your breath. You're not breathing.
Yep.
So if you can just consciously say, okay, where's my breath? Just take a breath, and it's like, whew, instant. There's like instant relief. Like there's something to this breath stuff. And as the saying goes, they told us if you can control your physiology, you can control your psychology, because the two are hand in hand. So they taught us breath control out there. They taught us just the art of positivity. It could always be worse. Oh yeah, it can. Trust me, it can always be. There were certain there's something called the goon squad, which is something you don't want to be in. That means you're not up to standard, and you need extra sauce, basically. So it could always be worse. So keep that positivity going, especially on a team. All it takes is one negative person. You've experienced it, I'm sure. We're all part of several teams in life.
Yep.
But all it takes is one negative person, and it's like, oh, here we go. That's the stuff's infectious, man.
It is.
Gotta nip it.
Yeah.
Nip it. And then the other two were goal setting. So just being able to, take this monumental task they're asking us to do and breaking it down into manageable chunks. So there were lots of just things that they'd throw at you. You're like, just the gravity of it. It's like, how am I gonna? There's no way I could do this. You just got to make it through, man. Small chunks, just like running a race. Let's say, make it to the next corner, make it to the next stoplight. What have.
Yeah.
And then the last one was visualization, and just the power, how powerful the mind is if you take the time to slow down and literally, see yourself being successful, see yourself delivering that speech, or, coaching your kids, or, don't let negativity in. It's got to be positive in your mind, because that's said it earlier, that's where it starts, is in the mind. You got to see yourself be successful. So there you go. That's the big four.
I love it. Toughness. Yeah, no, I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your book. You mentioned, one thing I'm observing, you seem to be very efficient. You're walking on the treadmill, looks like, or a walking desk or something like that. Waking up early, writing 500 words every day. How long did it take you to write your book? And tell us a little bit about what your book is about and some of the benefits in it.
Sure. Took me forever to write the book, man. Yeah. Gosh, I tell you what, next to Crow Camp, this is probably the next hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
because it was just I don't consider myself. I mean, I do now, a writer, since
Yeah.
I'm an author, and it is therapy. It was therapeutic for me to get your thoughts down onto paper. But just, man, like the editing, the edits, and just it's a big gnarly process. At least it
Yeah.
was for me. And it took me literally from the point that I started to where I am this year. It took me 5 years to get
Nice.
to this point. And I could have gotten it done earlier, but I wanted it to be I didn't want any holes to be in there for me.
Hmm.
And I went back and I did a big revision, and it took probably added on another year, but I knew I had to add it in there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what that was in just a second. But the book's called School Grit, and the subtitle is Unlock Your Potential Through Purposeful Adversity. And it basically details a lot of what we talked about, why I would choose to go to a camp put on by Navy SEALs to put myself in adversity and be up over 50 hours straight. And it literally it's chronological. It takes you through each evolution or event that they were having us go through. So
Hmm.
it's kind of part adventure, because I'm taking you along for the ride, like what I was feeling, what we were doing, what it felt like in those moments, what my teammates were saying, what the cadre were saying. And then at the end of each chapter, I give you the lesson that the SEALs were trying to teach us. And then the application to life. That's the part that I added that I didn't originally have, was,
Mm.
okay, how do I see how that works at, Brad, this Navy SEAL camp, but I don't want to be a Navy SEAL or do anything. How do I apply this to my, okay, cool. This is how I do it as a father, as a husband, as a coworker, that type of thing. And then shout out to David Goggins, because he had me thinking about this when I read his book. I have a challenge in there too at the end of every chapter. He
Yeah.
motivated me to put that in there. So there's
Yeah.
20 challenges in there for you at the end of each chapter.
Nice. Nice. So I'm curious. I was talking to my wife, Nikki. She recently spoke at this ladies' event at this congregation here in Texas. And, after she got back, she was thinking, or we were just kind of talking, and she said, what's next? Like, you have these great experiences, and now it's like, okay, well, what's the next thing? And there's a story in the Old Testament of the Bible of a prophet by the name of Elijah, and he comes against these other false prophets, and he defeats them in the book of First Kings. And then the very next chapter, after he had this mountaintop experience, he falls into this state of depression and fear, and someone's trying to kill him. And so he runs away. He's by this juniper tree, and he's asking God just to take his life. And it's an interesting story because he just defeated like 800 people. So now one person is saying, I'm going to take you out, and he just like collapses. And
Hmm.
so there's like this 40-day period where he rests and he eats, and God reminds him of like purpose and things that he needs to do. So I was telling my wife, well, maybe the next thing for you is to rest, or maybe the next thing is to just recharge your batteries, where yeah, I think sometimes there can be a danger of like these big mountaintop experiences. How do we keep topping these? So this question is, when you think about purposeful adversity, whether it's waking up early or making the bed or whatnot, I think a lot of people today have gotten caught up with yeah, constantly have to do like something big. What type of advice or coaching would you give, where someone may be struggling like with what is next, or what's your philosophy with rest and
Hmm.
recovery, not just like with exercise, but even in these big missions, I would imagine with Navy SEALs,
Hmm.
eventually they come home and eventually they have to recover, or like an astronaut, then eventually you got to
Yeah.
come back and regroup. What's your philosophy, or what's your thought, about how do we balance all of this, with the adversity and what's next?
Yeah. Awesome question. So it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. When you look at performance, I'm just much more of a optimal performance versus peak, for exactly what you just said, because there is that depression, that lull, there's always that valley. And the way I go about opening up my candidates or my coaching clients' eyes to optimal performance, I think there's basically 6 things you need to do every day.
Okay.
Okay. And these, again, not rocket science. Hard
Yeah.
to do though. Like a
Yep.
lot of this stuff reads easy on paper, but you're like, oh, it's just harder to do than I thought. The first is to get some movement.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your jam is, do something, right? We got 2 legs for a reason. Unless you got a medical reason why you
Mm-hmm.
can't move around. I mean, that's obviously a whole nother topic, but most of us are perfectly fine. Get out there and move, whether that's yoga, tai chi, walking, running, CrossFit. Find your jam and do it. All right. So that's the first thing. Move a little bit every day. The second is nutrition. So pay attention to what's coming into your body and look at it more as fuel, you know. And I'm not the strictest of I hate the word diet. I don't have a strict. I eat when I'm hungry. Basically, I don't eat huge meals anymore. I try not to, and I try to eat like real food. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
not processed. Am I 100%? No. But I like the 80-20 rule
Yep.
because I'll still have a donut. I'll still eat pizza. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I'm just a big believer in that. So you're getting some movement. You're getting, you got good fuel coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what the next one is what you just said. Sleep, man. You got to sleep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to, especially the older we get, we need
Yeah.
to recover. So whatever that is for you, for me, it's 8 hours. I mean, it is what it is. I try to get about 8 hours. I can
That's
usually tell when
fantastic.
I've had 6
Yeah.
back to or less, back to back to back. And that's not saying that I don't do that on occasion. Yeah. I mean, there's times you got to burn the candles at both end. So we got where are we at? We got movement, we've got sleep, we've got
Nutrition.
nutrition, and then we've got stress. So what do I mean by stress? I'm not saying eliminate stress. I think that's impossible,
Yeah.
but evaluate your relationship with stress. Is it you stress? Is it distress? And an example of
Mhm.
that might be, you come home from work and I don't know, you crack open a beer. Okay, well, I mean that's not the end of the world. I mean that's just what I believe. Whatever you want to do. But if that one beer starts becoming like 3, and then before you know it, you've polished off a 6-pack on a Tuesday night just because you had a good day at work, like you might want to evaluate that. Just something to take note of. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's for you to decide. But that's a form of stress, though. It's a stress reliever. Really look really pay attention to how you relieve stress in your own life because it's not going anywhere, right? You're not getting rid of it unless you're going to become a Shaolin monk in Tibet or something. But yeah, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I want you to also look at your social circles, your communities of
Mm.
practice. Who do you surround yourself with? What groups are you a part of? Um, because that's a big heavy influence on us. Do people bring you up? Do they suck down your energy? Try to get rid of the people that have negativity all the time. It gets tough though when it's family members. I mean, it gets
Yeah.
real tough when it's family
Yeah.
members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly
word of
right.
caution there, but friends can come and go. I don't have a whole lot of friends, real friends, but the ones I have, like I would do anything for, and they would do anything for me, that
Hmm.
type thing. So those are some things I would say that you can do day in, day out
Yeah.
to start living that optimal life. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then those good days, they habit stack. Good days become good weeks, become good months. Not that you might not have a few bad days here and there, but
Hmm.
I just try to keep it basic, man. And then
Yeah.
have spend some time really thinking about like what is my purpose? That's a whole nother conversation, and that
Mhm.
can take a lot of time to find.
Yeah.
But at least spend some time thinking about it. A lot of people go through life without ever thinking about it. Like,
Yeah.
what am I here to do?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that distinction between optimal versus peak, where
Hmm.
maybe people are just always thinking about they have to be at this highest level constantly, and
Hmm.
it's like a marathon runner. when do they run the marathon? When you're training for one, you run it the day of the race, not before.
Yes.
You get close to that mileage, but you want to be at that peak, moment for that particular moment. So I think that's a great distinction, even for me, with optimal versus peak, where optimal is, as you're saying, habit stacking, very similar to atomic habits, right? Where you just keep building, or you start off
Yep.
with 2 minutes every day to grow that. So someone's listening to this and they say, okay, listen, I want to go over and take that grit test by Angela Duckworth. So I definitely am going to do that.
Yeah,
But tell
just
me
type
about
in grit scale, man. It'll come
grit
right up.
scale.
That's
Okay,
it.
grit
Yeah,
scale.
it's
Yeah,
that
I'll
easy.
let you know what my grit level
Yeah,
is.
please do.
Um, so somebody may be asking, well, okay, what's if there's only one thing I can do today? So we're recording this on a Friday.
Yep.
So somebody says, okay, look, Monday's coming or Tuesday or whatever. And if there's just one thing I can do tomorrow to help improve my grit, you would say what?
I would say find something that sucks that's good for you and do it.
Boom.
And I'll leave
Okay.
that up open to interpretation because waking up might be easy for people. I don't want to give you a softball, or taking a cold shower might not be a big deal. It is for me,
Yep.
but there's
Yep.
lots of things that fit that. But get
Awesome.
uncomfortable, man. Get
Get
uncomfortable every day.
uncomfortable.
Yep.
I have to ask you, I love books. Any book recommendations for me or for the audience?
Oh gosh. Well, I talked about Angela Duckworth's grit book. That was transformative in my life. Mark Devine has a book called Unbeatable Mind.
Okay.
It's really, really good. There's so many that have had an impact, but those are two that I usually always talk about. Seth Godin's got a good one called Tribes,
Okay.
which is really, really good. But there you
Yeah.
go. There's
Awesome.
three.
Well, Brad, this has been fantastic, and I appreciate your time and your energy and your passion, and I'm happy you went to that week, or those 50 hours of intense pressure and exercise and everything like that. Where can people find you if they want to be a part of your coaching program, and where can they find your book?
Yeah, check me out on my website. It's schoolofgrit.org. So that's not .com. I don't own the domain name for that, and I wasn't going to pay for it, but it's schoolofgrit.org, and you'll find all my contact information there. You'll find you can download a menu for coaching. I put all my pricing out there, so very transparent as far as what you're getting yourself into. And then if you're interested in the book, it's on Amazon. It's the best way to get it. Just check out School of Grit, and I'd love to hear from you, man. So,
Absolutely.
leave a review. So yeah,
Absolutely.
reviews are very important.
Yeah. Final thought for the audience.
Final thought: life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Mm,
So get uncomfortable.
awesome. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Benjamin. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.